Europe is not collapsing, it is being compressed. For decades, the continent believed it had transcended power politics. War was replaced with regulation, sovereignty softened into union, growth optimized through trade, and security comfortably outsourced. Cheap Russian energy fueled German industry, Chinese manufacturing reduced production costs, and American military protection stabilized the perimeter. It looked like strategic maturity. It was structural dependency. Today, Europe stands between two gravitational centers powerful enough to reshape the global order, the United States and China. This is not a Cold War replay built on ideology. It is a systemic rivalry built on supply chains, currency dominance, energy security, semiconductor control, artificial intelligence, and industrial scale. On one side, the United States controls the financial bloodstream of the world. The dollar remains the global reserve currency. International liquidity clears through American institutions. Sanctions can isolate entire economies from payment systems overnight. Europe's security architecture still flows through NATO, which in practice means Washington holds decisive leverage. On the other side, China controls the manufacturing backbone of globalization. It dominates large segments of industrial production, rare earth processing, battery supply chains, solar infrastructure, and export-driven scale. China is one of Europe's largest trading partners. Europe trades with China, relies on America, and commands neither. That is not balance, it is compression. For 30 years, the European model thrived under uniquely favorable conditions. Energy was inexpensive, trade was expanding, capital was mobile, and geopolitical stability reduced hard power calculations. The European Union grew confident in regulatory influence, shaping environmental standards, digital privacy frameworks, competition law, and trade rules. Influence became Europe's currency, but influence without hard leverage weakens under pressure. The first visible fracture appeared in energy. When Russian gas flows collapsed, industrial Europe absorbed a structural shock. Energy-intensive sectors faced higher costs. Manufacturing competitiveness narrowed. Germany, long considered the economic engine of the continent, confronted stagnation pressures. Energy is not just a commodity, it is industrial oxygen. When oxygen becomes expensive, heavy industry suffocates gradually, not dramatically. Simultaneously, the United States accelerated strategic industrial policy. Massive subsidy programs incentivized semiconductor fabrication, electric vehicle production, and advanced battery facilities to relocate or expand domestically. Capital follows incentives, and incentives shifted westward. Investment that might once have flowed toward European industry reconsidered geography. Meanwhile, China moved aggressively up the technological ladder. It expanded electric vehicle exports, increased domestic chip ambitions, scaled renewable infrastructure manufacturing, and deepened integration across emerging markets through long-term infrastructure financing. Chinese firms increasingly compete not only on cost, but on speed and scale. Europe now faces a narrowing corridor of maneuverability. Align too closely with Washington and risk economic friction with Beijing. Maintain deep trade ties with Beijing and risk technological and strategic tension with Washington. The concept of strategic autonomy circulates in European policy circles, but autonomy requires capacity, energy independence, technological leadership, fiscal cohesion, military credibility. Capacity requires investment, political unity, and speed. Europe struggles with all three simultaneously. Demographics compound the pressure. Aging populations reduce workforce growth and increase fiscal burdens. Pension systems expand while productivity gains slow. Public debt ratios constrain flexibility during stagnation. Debt is manageable in expansion. It becomes restrictive in low-growth environments. The euro unified monetary policy without fully integrating fiscal authority, leaving structural asymmetries during crises. Monetary unity without fiscal unity produces stress during shocks. Security further tightens the squeeze. The war in Ukraine reinforced dependence on American defense infrastructure. European defense budgets are rising, but command structures and strategic deterrence still lean heavily on US capacity. Security without sovereign capability becomes reliance. Technology is perhaps the most decisive battlefield. The next era of global power will be shaped by artificial intelligence, advanced semiconductors, automation systems, and data dominance. The United States leads in frontier AI research and high-end chip design. China commands manufacturing scale and state-coordinated industrial momentum. Europe regulates technology effectively, but regulation does not equal ownership. Control of production defines leverage more than control of policy. Globalization itself is fragmenting. The previous era optimized for efficiency. The emerging era optimizes for resilience and alignment. Supply chains are shortening. Strategic industries are being reshored or geopolitically clustered. Trade blocs are solidifying. In a polarized system, middle positions grow unstable. Europe's strength historically came from internal integration combined with external openness. When openness becomes exposure, vulnerability rises. This is the fracture phase, not collapse, not dramatic implosion, but gradual narrowing of options. Empires rarely fall overnight. They experience compression. Policy flexibility declines. Strategic trade-offs intensify. Growth slows. Political fragmentation increases as economic pressure translates into domestic tension. Populist movements gain traction not from ideology alone, but from stagnation. Prosperity underwrites unity, stagnation strains it. Europe remains wealthy, institutionalized, and technologically advanced. But structural momentum matters more than static wealth. The United States consolidates financial and military dominance. China consolidates industrial and export scale. Europe attempts to coordinate 27 national interests into unified strategy. Coordination is slower than consolidation. In moments of rapid global realignment, speed becomes power. Subtle indicators reveal the shift. Capital flows drifting outward, energy-intensive industries reconsidering location, strategic investments pulled by foreign subsidy regimes, policy language shifting from expansion to resilience. These are not headlines of collapse. They are signals of compression. Every major European decision now carries external consequence. Support American export controls and risk Chinese retaliation. Preserve Chinese trade and risk strategic distrust from Washington. Invest massively in autonomy and strain fiscal constraints. Delay investment and deepen dependency. There is no neutral ground left, only constrained choices. Being caught between empires in the modern era does not mean occupation. It means limited maneuverability. It means negotiating space between larger forces shaping currency systems, defense networks, industrial ecosystems, and digital architecture. Europe is not powerless, but it is pressured, and pressure reshapes systems quietly. The coming decade will determine whether Europe reforms structurally, expanding energy resilience, accelerating technological investment, deepening fiscal integration, strengthening defense sovereignty, or settles into managed dependency within a bipolar world. Reform demands political cohesion and rapid execution. Dependency demands adaptation to external agendas. History shows that regions relying heavily on external security and external production eventually face recalibration when the global order hardens. That hardening is underway. This is not prophecy of collapse. It is recognition of structural squeeze. Europe once stood at the center of global power projection. Today it stands between competing power centers. The question is no longer whether pressure exists. The question is whether the European structure can absorb prolonged compression, or whether the fracture slowly widens until strategic autonomy becomes a memory rather than a policy goal.